When random parts on your build plate get the weeble wobbles, but they don't fall over, an ender that just stops printing randomly, and some Bambu fails. All this and more, Print Fix Friday, episode 85. We're almost at 100. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back, and if you're new to the channel and you're dealing with some print fails, make sure to leave a like and get subscribed. We go through this every single week, and if you do want to get your print fails featured on the show, where I take a look at them and do my best to help you solve them, you can do so by hitting us up on all the social media, sliding into those DMs using the hashtag PrintFix, or email me directly, YouTube at 3dmusketeers.com. Everything linked in that description down below, where you can reach out to us so that we can help you make awesome. Got some good fails for you today. I just got back from the Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Festival, so without further ado, let's talk about our sponsor, 3D Musketeers. If you are dealing with print fails like I've been dealing with, and you don't want to be dealing with them and then have me deal with them instead, even though most of the time we don't have print fails, but sometimes we still do, you can reach out to us at 3D Musketeers. We have over 45 3D printers, over 40 years of combined experience helping people like you fail less every single day. And if we do have print fails, they're no longer your problem, which is the best kind of print fails as far as I'm concerned. And if you're not really looking to get any 3D printing done, maybe you're looking for some 3D scanning, pros here can help you out as well, utilizing our Tech 3D scanners to help take even the smallest objects and make them digital for replication and 3D printing, AR, VR, digital twins, or heck, whatever new crazy buzzwords I'm supposed to be using when I talk about that kind of thing. But if you aren't looking to outsource anything, but you're looking to support the channel, we do have YouTube channel members, Patreon, and now PayPal as well for as little as $1 a month to support us. And at the $10 tier or higher, you get to come hang out in our private Discord server to come hang out with the Musketeers and myself. We talk a lot about awesome print fails, fixing them, among many, many other things. And the fun one about the first one we're about to look at, I looked at it and knew exactly what the problem is, and it's always fun when you get to do that. So without further ado, like, subscribe, comment, all the things you're supposed to do. Let's fix some fails. Starting off with an interesting fail from our Discord from Super Caro. They have a Sovol SV06, as we're going to be calling them here on the channel, a poverty prusa, because they work really well and they're relatively affordable. But Caro here's having a problem where if you look at the edge of some of the parts, we've got some problems. Some of the parts here have a bit of some wiggle in them, but it's not all of them. It's just at one end. Normally though, when you see angles like that, and it's not intentional, they were going just to be printing these squares, I'm assuming for some sort of calibration. And some of them are angled like that. There are two things to check. One, is your acceleration too high? And then two, your grub screws on your actual pulleys that are attached to the motor shaft. Caro had already been talking about the acceleration and wanting to change it down from, I believe, 1500 down to 800. So a significant drop in acceleration, but still fine. Those machines should be able to handle either one of them, but it's good to still try. But I said, hey, check your grub screw to see if it's loose. And they put a screwdriver on it. You're supposed to use a hex key, but if you have a screwdriver with the right size, flathead, it can sometimes work. You know, just be careful there, obviously. They said it was loose. So they went ahead and retightened it. And with those couple of changes, geez, some of these, that's just so bad. We end up with parts that look great. Actually, these are all looking fine. A little bit over extruded, and I would still hedge that maybe you've got some belt tensioning issues there, and definitely a little bit too close. So we can see some blobbing here. There are ways to fix this, and it's things like linear advance or pressure advance and all that. Now, the SV06 and SV06 Plus are direct drive, so you're not going to have as much ooze, but don't count it out as being something that could go wrong. It is still a potential failure mode, so be careful there. It's definitely a trap for the newbies, where, yeah, it looks okay, but it could look better. Definitely, let's take a look at that first layer. It looks to be a little bit too close to me, but with textured build plates, it's not immediately obvious because it just kind of digs farther into the textured build plate. And don't worry about the white on the bed coming off. That's a Sovol thing. It just happens. Ignore it. It's fine. So there are some things that can be fixed, but I'm glad at least immediately that the issue with what is either a pulley or acceleration is resolved. Let's look at doing these things one at a time. When you do look at making changes, it is best to do it one step at a time, just like I ask you one step at a time to like the video. And hey, if you're not subscribed, get subscribed because it's free and helps out our channel a ton. So if you do, thanks. And we have lots of coverage coming from the Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Fest. We have day 2 coming next week. So yeah, come on, subscribe, obviously. But yeah, I'm glad that Caro is getting this thing dialed in. They're really good printers. At least my SV06s have been great. And I hear the Plus is pretty much as good, if not better. Although I am going to be changing mine over to a completely different hot end. We're going to be putting a real volcano on it because I don't like the not Kano, and I am okay dealing with that because I am also going to be putting a Diamondback on it. Benchy on new Ender 3v2, bed thoroughly leveled with great first layer. What are they doing wrong? We have a case of under extrusion, and because it is happening this often, check your hot end cooling fan. I am guessing that you are not getting enough cooling across your hot end, or it might not be on at all, and you are getting heat creep, which is causing these issues. Let's see what other people say. I do believe it's going to be heat creep. And while it could be a clog, we're seeing this over and over again at roughly the same layer height. Now, I can't check that for sure, but it looks like after a certain amount of time, and I'm assuming this is more of a time thing rather than a layer height thing, heat from the hot end is getting up into the heat sink and it's not being dissipated by a hot end cooling fan. So check to make sure the fan on your Ender is actually spinning. On an Ender 3v2, the fan for it will be right here. And considering that it looks a little crusty, it might be good to go ahead and pull that front plate off and make sure that fan is spinning. If it's not, make it spin, either by replacing it, rewiring it, cleaning it. There are lots of options. And also make sure air is blowing onto the hot end and not being pulled away from it. Sometimes if you do work on these machines, you might accidentally put the fan on backwards and they're nowhere near as effective pulling air as they are pushing it. So definitely be careful there as well. But really, everything else here is fine. 0.16 millimeter height, bed temp of 50, nozzle of 200. I'm going with heat creep, because I firmly believe it's heat creep. Next up, a fail from one of our Patreon members, Logan Luckless, who is dealing with some Z Wobble on what I presume is a Voron, because there's a honey badger thing here. I honestly don't know what printer this is, but we got Z Wobble, and Z Wobble is pretty easy to spot, right? It's just a pretty consistent wobbling of your part, and oftentimes it's related to your lead screw, your layer height, your stepper motors, or something being loose in the system. Now, we want to be able to check a few things. One, our belts, and our XY motion system. If there's even a little bit of slack, when the printer might be going in one direction versus another for those exterior perimeters, it might wiggle one way or another. So check to make sure that everything is kind of tight. Check your grub screws on your pulleys. Check your belts to make sure they're properly tensioned. Check your bearings, if you have them, that they're rolling freely by hand in all directions. And then, if none of that is the issue, check to make sure your bed moves cleanly up and down, and that there is no backlash in the system. It is common for printers that use lead screws to have some form of backlash in their Z-axis, because it's pretty tough to get a zero backlash lead screw. Now, there are anti-backlash nuts for the lead screws that basically apply pressure to both sides of the thread. So you have your top side and your bottom side of the thread. If you're only applying pressure on one side, it will have to take up that pressure when it moves in the other direction, creating a very small amount of backlash, but enough in high accuracy printing that you can actually pretty easily detect it. And it looks kind of like this. So you can install an anti-backlash nut, but understand it's going to add a fair bit of friction into your Z-axis. So you might also want to look at increasing the current on your Z-axis stepper motor. And if all of that doesn't do anything to solve this problem, take a look at the actual attachment points for the Z-axis. It might be kind of getting stuck. We have this on our big D-bot, which you guys have never seen, and for at least the foreseeable future, aren't. I am so freaking busy right now. It is not even funny. But at some point, we're going to be upgrading its Z-axis from a triplet of lead screws to a singular 16 millimeter ball screw, which is just a way better solution in the grand scheme of things, especially when you're looking at a machine at this build volume. It's 400 by 400 by 800. It's a big printer. Some things to look at for sure, and I hope this helps. Look for any signs of just things that are catching, because chances are that's gonna do it. And with the layers that often, it might not be the lead screw. So don't immediately go to the lead screw thinking it's nothing but. Your XY motion system might also be to blame here. Always look at your bearings, and if you haven't and don't know the last time you lubricated your ball bearings, it's probably time to go ahead and do that. PSA, don't forget drainage holes in your resin prints. Yeah, this is a thing that we see with a lot of Etsy sellers that are overseas and doing things on the cheap. Because they don't want to take the time to make sure the inside of the part is fully clean and cured, as well as empty of any excess resin, they just hollow the parts, but then don't put drain holes. So it just stays full of raw resin. Now, maybe they do put a drain hole, but they often don't put UV light up into it to go ahead and make sure that it is curing the inside of the part as well. And if you don't do that, your parts will crack over time as the outside tends to continue to cure, but the inside doesn't, creating some stresses between the inside and outside of the part, causing it to crack like this. Resin parts do shrink a little bit as they heat up and cure. So what we're seeing is the outside shrinking, but the inside not shrinking either, basically creating these big fissures that you see here, reminiscent of where I would see a kaiju be coming out of in something like Pacific Rim. But as people are saying, the thing with resin prints that you're often doing something for like a D&D board game or 40K or something like that, these are just battle damaged, but definitely make sure you get them cured and get all that raw resin cleaned out because resin is toxic and we need to be careful about handling raw resin because it can and will hurt you. Please be careful with raw resin. Just please. Yeah. We've seen this before. We talked about it before on the channel as well. If you do drain holes, make sure to put them in spots that matter. Use UV tools. We need to do a new video on UV tools. And I'm probably not even the right person to do it. I'm still learning it myself because it is incredibly powerful. But it is the cheat code for resin printing where you just give it your file and it tells you if there are problems and can actually fix a lot of them for you so you're not riding the struggle bus trying to fix it yourself. Yeah, you're welcome. It's really useful. Don't be afraid to put holes in your parts. It is often very simple to go ahead and close those holes with a little bit of raw resin. Normally these holes are 2 to 3 millimeters and you could do a couple of them. That way you can have more smaller holes rather than one large one, which is going to be more of a problem to patch. But often when you do create drain holes, you can also create a plug that fits into it as well. That will make your part relatively seamless. But the nice thing about raw resin is if you have something like a UV laser or a UV LED diode, you can kind of use capillary action to fill the hole. We use like a toothpick to grab up a dot of resin, put it over the hole, let capillary action take it, and then cure it real fast. Put another drop on top of it, then sand it all smooth, and you don't even know those holes exist. That's the great thing about it. Actually, if there are no drain holes in this, I'm surprised this thing even printed, because the suction cups that would be created from this would be pretty ridiculous. Make sure you're using a slicer that can detect a lot of this for you, and also one that can export to UV tools. So if you're basically not using Lychee Slicer, you're doing it wrong because they have the best software for resin printers out there. And they don't pay me to say that. Maybe they should. But yeah, drain holes. It's important. Oh man, you know, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And with this Bambu, I am constantly losing. So those of you that know how to operate a Bambu with no problems, can you just please reach out to me? Because even running stock settings on my Bambu with approved materials does not work. Why? I don't know, because screw me, that's why. This is Bambu number 2, for those that don't know, that I am having constant problems with. And the parts you see in these pictures of Twitter actually right here, and it's putting pieces of white plastic all over my desk. So let's take a look at this part and let's kind of talk about it a little bit. This is a part that I can't yet talk about. It's actually printing behind me on a Prusa. I ran 4 of these before we left for Rocky Mountain Rep Fest, and guess how many of them succeeded? 2 Prusas, a Sovol, and a Bambu, 0 successes. But it has a lot of very fine detail. Sucks to suck sometimes. What we can see here is that we are overrunning our heater. So we've got parts that look great on the outside edges where it's relatively slow, but in the middle here, again, stock settings, it's not printing at all. This is Polylight PLA for Polymaker, and while putting the printer down to 50% worked a little bit, it was still really bad, to the point where the printer jammed up so bad, I was never able to clear the jam. I've got my jamming clearing tools ready, so as soon as I'm done filming this, I'm gonna go unclog that Bambu. But this is the exact same problem that I've constantly dealt with this machine. It's just like the stock settings aren't any good. I'm used to companies that use stock settings as a very conservative baseline, something with tons of room to go faster. But this is a well-known thing that works well the first time with minimal to no issues. And, well, yeah, I don't understand why my machines have been so flaky. Maybe they hate me, maybe it's a Bambu cabal. Hashtag Bambu Mafia. But I'm just trying to find something that's gonna work reliably on these machines. I don't have materials that work reliably on these machines, and I'm not spending $30 a kilo for God knows what type of PLA that Bambu PLA is. It's got something else in it, and I don't know what it is. And until I know what it is, I can't risk putting it into production for client parts. I have to use materials that I've tested and validated to be good. And for parts like this that need to look pretty, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And it just chaps my ass because I feel like I'm doing everything right and I just can't catch a break on this. So if you guys have better experience with the Bambu, please let me know what I can do. This is bone stock settings at 0.08 millimeter layer height. Yeah, 80 micron layer height because quality matters. I was trying to do variable layer height, but it just kept crashing the program. And oddly, when Bambu Studio crashes, it doesn't actually crash. It just takes the entire project and dumps it into RAM. Like 10 or 15 gigs of RAM just instantly gets used, and then the program hangs indefinitely. How do I know this? Because I left it for 4.5 days. And when I came back, nothing had changed. So Bambu Studio doesn't crash in the way that I'm expecting, where when Prusa Slicer crashes, it just crashes. Yeah, if you have better experience with this, please let me know, because stock settings don't work, and everybody that I talk to says, oh yeah, just use stock settings and it will work. Well, it doesn't. And it's a $1,600 printer. When I run stock settings on all of my other machines, and I'm even going down to like Ender 3 V2s, it works just fine. Is it the prettiest? Not on an Ender. Is it the prettiest on a Prusa? No, because it takes like triple the amount of time it should because they run so friggin' slow on bone stock settings. This is just unacceptable to every stretch of the imagination for a printer that costs this amount of money. Before you say, oh, well, you're just a hater. I'm not. I really want this printer to work. In fact, when I'm done with this video, I'm gonna go unclog the Bambu first before the Sovol under it that is also clogged. And if you think it's the material, I'm now on 5 different kilos of Polylite PLA that I've ordered kind of throughout the few months, and they're all having the same problems in the Bambu. So unless it's just the white Polylite PLA that has this problem, I don't know. But what I do know is that I'm getting very frustrated with this to the point that I don't care if it's fast. I care more about reliability. And again, I had none of them succeed on this print, but every single one of them got further than the Bambu did. So that's something to say about printers that are, in the case of the Sovol, 1/5 of the price. We had a bunch of people comment on it, and everybody says, you know, even the Soft Fever guys, too fast. Well, how fast is too fast? I don't know. Sam says he's only had 1 fail across 6 and 2 fail on prints due to settings, but that was setting PLA to Bambu and not generic. That's fair because the Bambu PLA runs way faster. I don't know what I'm doing different other than it's hotter here. Like it's, I think 76 inside right now. And that's just because it's been really warm. I normally let it get to the 80s in here because, well, it's expensive to air condition a place with 28 3D printers in one room. By the way, it's a 140 square foot room with 28 3D printers in it. You can do the math on how much energy that runs. Also, this is like such a pain in the ass. We're like, ours run fantastic. I'm so glad yours run fantastic, but if you're not gonna help me telling me yours run fantastic, just really only upsets me. And my response is exactly the way it should be. It is 100% my experience, and for $1,600, I expect better. My $250 Sovol SV06 should not serve as a Bambu backup. I get it. My experience is not indicative of everybody else's, but I don't care. I'm doing everything by the book. Now, I'm not updating my Bambu. So Bambu updated the X1, as well as I think they've released a new software. I'm not updating anything. In fact, my X1 is not even connected to the internet anymore because we are still actively trying to break the encryption that is on the log files for the X1 Carbon. And for those that don't care, fine. But for those of you that are in the InfoSec community and have an issue with a log file being over 170 megabytes when they're telling us they're not sending anything personally identifying, nor are they sending G codes, nor are they sending files, 170 megabytes for a printer that's had like a dozen prints on it is a pretty big log file to not be sending personally identifiable information. So Bambu, if you are listening to this, I would love a way to decrypt your log files. Otherwise, my bounty will still stand at $5 $500 to the first person that can go ahead and crack the encryption on the log files for the machine itself. The log files for the slicer are in plain text, but it does release a lot of information that I wouldn't be okay with. And what we have been able to determine is that there is an OTA protocol inside of the Bambu, which means theoretically they could update these without any user interaction whatsoever. It can be just commanded to be adjusted. And those in the InfoSec community, you all know how dangerous that can be. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox for that and really just get back to, I'm confused. I'm gonna clear the clog in my HOTA because the filament is so... I have cut the filament and it's still stuck, right? So I have manually cut the filament using the cutter and I still can't get it to pull the filament out. So it's likely ground into the extruder quite a bit, which means probably just gonna replace the extruder. But nonetheless, I think this is a little bit excessive for what these machines are supposed to do. And if you do have good experience with yours, let me know what I can do different. I'm gonna be cutting the speeds way down and trying this print again because I really don't know what else to do. And I hate just complaining about these things constantly, and I'd rather be showing you guys how good of a print quality it can do, and then looking at comparing it to other printers on the market that are often being compared, like the Prusa Mark IV, which I don't have one of those yet, but maybe soon TM, the Sovol SV06, the SV06 Plus, and others that are kind of, you know, either in that same price bracket, in that same style. Look at other Core XYs, maybe compare it to something like a Voron Trident. Actually coming soon. Had some great talks at the Rocky Mountain Rep Fest, and we are getting Vorons, so keep an eye out. Vorons are happening. It's finally happening. Anyways, this has been like a 15-minute Bambu rant, so I need to kind of wrap this one up in a bow for you guys and basically say, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I feel personally attacked. But anyways, guys, I'm sorry. This is probably not the greatest PrintFix Friday, but I just got back into town from Rocky Mountain Rep and taking a couple of days for my own mental health because things get a little rough when you work that hard. It just feels like I'm coming back to everything is just breaking around me. So I got to get back to work, and I hope you guys enjoy your weekend coming up here. I will see you all on Sunday, but maybe I will see you on Saturday. So get subscribed, keep an eye on the channel because we're definitely doing a podcast this weekend. We definitely need to make sure that we do these unboxings. We have a couple of unboxings coming up here, so stay tuned for that. That's really all I got for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. Try to get some sleep, as he says to himself, as he knows he's not going to get any sleep. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video, and a massive thank you goes out to all of our Patreon, PayPal, and YouTube channel member supporters whose names are listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. Remember, if you want to support the efforts that we do here in making this content and paying for cameras like this, used, it was like 240 bucks. It wasn't a ton of money. A good camera for the money. You can do so by clicking those links in that description, by either supporting us directly, supporting the companies that support us, or at least sharing the video with some other people would help out a ton. Right below me will be the entire PrintFix Friday series. You can take a look at the previous iterations of the series and what it all looks like. And right next to that will be the printer maintenance series, which I'm about to go do. So I will see you all down in those comments and the next one. Take care.